to go bear hunting after watching this video up here. If you want to go, I know some places. You just got to talk to that pretty little lady sitting in the back there into letting me go with you. I'll take you up there. She's a little hesitant to let me go back to Alaska. I don't know, maybe, I don't know if she doesn't think I can get around up there too well, but I do have my wife and my daughters. One of my daughters running around with a camera, and the other one's sitting back there with my wife. So it's good to have them here tonight too. They hunt with me. They hunt for me a little bit now. Sometimes they have to track things down and pull things out of the woods for me that I can't do. So it's kind of a turn of the tides. When they were young, they would shoot it and I would go get it and field dress it and drag it home and skin it and take care of it. And of course they would help butcher it up and everything and once we got it to the house and cook it. But now I shoot it and they go get it and drag it back. And they still haven't got anything yet for me. They're not ready to field dress, so I still have to. But well, the great thing about being in a wheelchair, I've got uncles and cousins that hunt with me. And it takes me a little while longer to do anything. So as soon as I get something on the ground and it's there and I start working, get over there to try to get it and field dressed, oh, we'll get it. Everybody wants to do everything for you. So, I don't like to rob people of a blessing, so I let them gut my deer for me. It's the least you can do, right? Somebody told me that I needed to share some stories with you tonight. And I was thinking about bear hunting, and I love to bear hunt. I went to Alaska. Actually, I joined the military. I grew up in West Virginia, whitetail hunting, squirrel hunting, rabbit hunting, or basically hunting anything that was in season. I don't remember a time in my life when I didn't hunt and fish. And I went to Panama in the military, and I was thinking about getting out of the Army and going back home. And I've been there for 4 years, and one of my recruiters came to me and said, hey, you're getting ready to come up on the end of your enlistment, you need to re-enlist. I said, no, I'm gonna go home and take a job. And he said, yeah, no, you need to re-enlist. I said, no, I'm gonna go home, take a job and go back, I wanna go back where I can hunt. I couldn't hunt in Panama. Fishing was just tremendous down there, but no hunting. And he said, what's it gonna take to get you to re-enlist in the Army? And I just got a hunting magazine in the mail, and it was talking about Alaska, and it talked about all the different big game you can hunt up there. Caribou and the moose and the sheep and the goats and the bears and the deer and the elk and all the salmon. Anybody here like to fish? Any fishermen in here? Any of you fish for salmon up in the Great Lakes? That's probably the closest place you can get to in the landlocked salmon. Alaska's got some wonderful salmon fishing. So I said, I'll tell you what, you give me an assignment in Alaska and I'll re-enlist. And he came back the next day with an assignment to Anchorage, Alaska. And I said, well, okay, give me a little time to think about it. Came back the next day and re-enlisted for 4 years in Alaska. Extended to stay up there even longer, met my wife up there, and we got married up there. They wouldn't let us stay past the 5.5-year mark. They sent us to Washington, D.C. I spent 3 years at the Pentagon, and after that, going from Alaska to D.C., and almost no people to a person every square inch of the city, we had enough, and we got out of the military, moved back to Alaska, and spent another 4.5 years up there. Before we felt like God was calling us into ministry. And we ended up back in West Virginia at a Bible college there. They had an awesome outdoor program, adventure program, and we graduated and just never left. So that's a little bit about us. You kind of know how we got in the wheelchair. Everybody wants to know that, so I'm glad Pastor Ben shared that. Just so you know, that little deer he shot, that was my daughter's pet. Don't tell him that, though. It'll break his heart. He probably doesn't need to know that. He isn't still in here, is he? Oh, he's sitting right over there. Oh, no, we had a lot of fun there with them as neighbors, but it's good to be with you guys tonight. So let me get a feel here. How many of you? Tell you what, I wanted to get rid of this thing anyway. This bug in the bottom. I'm just gonna drop this over here out of the way. I might just sit it right here in this fly rod bucket. I'll leave the little blue rope hanging out of there for whoever's drawing that prize. No, I'm kidding. I've gotten into fly fishing recently. My wife and I had a wonderful trip last year together. The interesting thing is I have, in the last year and a half since my accident, because of being in ministry and a father and involved in my church and other things, in the last 10 years I haven't had a lot of time to hunt and fish, and in the last year and a half I've spent more time on the water and probably more time in the woods than I have in the 5 or 6 or 10 years previous to that. So in some ways it's been somewhat of a blessing. It's allowed me to slow down and spend time with my family, and it's been wonderful. But we've got into fly fishing. I'm currently building her a fly rod right now. Don't tell her, but I'm putting some little bends and breaks in there. I've got to kind of even the field. She's a better fly fisherman than I am. So I need to do something to slow her down a little bit. So I might like really tie the eyes on all the way or something. I'm not sure how yet to kind of booby trap her rod to kind of keep it even. But we've really gotten into that, and so that's kind of our thing now. I still do enjoy hunting very much and get out as much as I can. But let me see, how many of you here like to hunt? All right, that's a pretty good crowd. How many of you here like to fish? There's a few more fishermen. How many of you here like to do both? Okay, how many of you just came for the free food? All right, okay, keep your hands up. All you that just raised your hand, if you win the guns tonight, since you don't hunt and you fish and you just came for the free food, you can just leave the guns stacked in the corner back there. We'll take care of those for you. Don't worry about it. If you win tonight, okay. I told you I was going to tell you a story about bear hunting. A buddy of mine from Ohio, again, I'm from West Virginia, a friend of mine from Ohio right across the river. His name was Nick, and we went on a sheep hunt. And while we were on this sheep hunt, we discovered that this place that we had gone to sheep hunt was loaded with bear, black bear. And we had actually started bear hunting in the spring in Alaska. You can hunt in the spring up there. And we'd started in the spring hunting up there, and up there you can bait for them. You put out bait and draw them in. And some people think that's kind of cruel, but it really gives you an opportunity to be very selective in what you hunt, and a lot of times just to observe bears. I have more bears on video that I didn't shoot than bears that I've actually harvested hunting up there. And actually, as you would have it, you just think I'm accident prone. I had smashed my leg in an ATV accident in the spring, early on in the hunting of that bear hunting season. And I hadn't been able to get out, and he had set out a bait station, and as my leg was just about ready to heal, I got stir crazy. Alaska, it's hard not to when you're inside for 9 months out of the year because of the snow and the cold. So I finally got on my four-wheeler and got out in the woods, strapped my crutches to the back rack, caught a crutch on a tree on the way up and ripped the top off the crutch. So I really didn't have a good set of crutches to use. So I hobbled out with my still messed up leg out to his bait station and sat down and ended up shooting a black bear, the only bear that ever came into that station the whole year. And Nick was okay with that. Steve's hurt, he let him shoot this bear, that's fine. And so we went sheep hunting together, and we got up on the mountain, and where we were at, we weren't seeing any big rams, and we really were looking for rams, and there wasn't anything there but ewes and some smaller rams. And having seen all these bears, Nick really wanted a bear. So he's like, I'm going back down the mountain and hunt bear. So we climbed all the way up there, and I said, well, I want to hunt for a bigger ram. We'll stick around, see if anything shows up. So I stayed for a while, and about half the day, and he was gone. Of course, Alaska, the top of the mountain, the bottom of the mountain's half a day or day's hike. It's a long way away. And it's early or mid, I guess it was August 20th, mid-August, and it began to snow on me up there. It's still in August, and we're getting snow. And it kind of tapered off, and I ended up finally deciding to go ahead. I'm up there by myself. There's bear scat everywhere where I'm at up there. I'm like, this is probably not the best place to be by yourself. So I took a small ewe. They were legal to shoot a ewe up there, so I took a small ewe and boned it out and packed it up and hauled it off the mountain. He came back and checked at our parking spot that evening and found me and drove me down the road and said, man, you got to come down here. I went down here, and I talked to these guys, and they said they've had like 4 bear in their camp in the last 2 weeks. He said, we got to go down there. He said, I'm going to get a bear. So we did. So we drove down to this place, and they had packed up and left. We set up our tents, our little 2-man tents. He had one, I had one. We were each in a tent. Hung the sheep meat and the sheep hide up behind us in the tree. And I got the next morning, and a very interesting bear. Not a real big bear, but there was a really interesting black bear, kind of a brownish coat with a big golden stripe down its back. We call it the skunk bear, and if you want to look at it, there's pictures of it in the books back there on the table. I brought in some of the pictures from Alaska. We saw it, and Nick shot at it, and he missed it, and it went up in the woods and disappeared. It's up on the hillside in front of us. We were kind of down in a flat area, and I was pretty worn out. My feet were pretty tore up. I didn't have the right boots on hiking in the wet grass going up to the sheep hunt, so my feet were full of blisters, and I could barely walk. So I went back to camp, was hanging up my socks and clothes and stuff on the bushes to dry them out. And I'm sitting around camp just kind of enjoying the scenery and the success of the hunt and waiting for Nick to come back. And I looked up, and that bear was back. And I'm standing there looking at this bear, and I thought, Nick will be here in a minute. He's feeding around here. It'll be, I'll just sit here and watch it and keep an eye on it until he gets back. I'll watch this bear for half an hour. My family, the Kempers, have a character flaw when it comes to hunting. We can look at an animal that we don't want to shoot, but if we look at it long enough, and then it starts to leave, this trigger kicks in that says it's getting away. It's kind of like a cat with a mouse. It won't chase until it starts to run. As it's starting to leave, I thought, this bear's leaving, it's getting away. I can't let that happen. And so I pulled my rifle out, got a steady rest, and shot. The bear hit the ground. But before that, let me just to in my defense, I looked down the trail in all directions, looked all over the place as hard as I could for Nick. Could not find Nick, so I got to shoot this bear. So I shot the bear. I looked down the trail, and Nick was huffing and puffing and steaming up the trail. And so now I've shot a bear off of Nick's bait station. I shot a sheep, and he didn't get to shoot a sheep. And now I just shot the black bear he's been chasing all day long in front of camp. Nick was not happy. It took me a while to convince him to stay. There'll be more bears. No, let's just stay, Nick. Okay, that's not the good part. The good part comes to what we did next. Now, you got to keep in mind, I'm from West Virginia. Nick's from Ohio. We've not hunted a lot of bear. There weren't a lot of bear in West Virginia at that time. We were green. We did crazy things. Nick really wanted to shoot a bear. So we decided, we came up with a plan. We have a tent here. We have a tent here. Behind us, there's a little mound of earth that's maybe 10 feet high with a few little scrub, 15-foot trees on it. So we hang up the sheep meat in the trees behind our tent. We hang up the bear meat in the trees behind our tent. We hang up the bear hide in the trees behind our tent with the sheep hide in the trees behind our tent, with our tent here and our tent here. And just to kind of sweeten the pot, we took the rest of the bear, the bones and the carcass, and we tied it to a bush 10 feet in front of our tent. And the bush was about this big around with a base about this big around. Okay, again, we were, mid-20s, and no offense to you 20-year-olds and younger, but not always thinking in the smartest of ways. So we went to bed that night. I woke up the next morning to the sound of a .300 Magnum going off 10 feet away. I sat up if you've never been awakened by a .300 Magnum going off right next to you after climbing up and down the sheep mountain the day before, you've not experienced living. You wake up really fast, okay? Maybe my wife should get one of those and use that to get me out of bed in the morning now. But so I woke up, unzipped the tent, tried to figure out what was going on. Nick said all you could hear was zippers flying from the sleeping bag in the tent and everything else. And of course, I can't see anything. I've got sleep in my eye. And I'm like, what is it? What is it? And he's like, there was something big and brown, and it was right up there on the hillside. And I'm like, bear? He said, yeah. And I said, well, did you hit it? And he said, I don't know. And as we're having this conversation, I looked at I didn't look at the bush because the bush wasn't there. I looked where the bush was, where the bear was tied to it. The bear was gone. The bush that it was tied to was gone. And we looked for, I think, 3 hours all over the area, never did figure out where that bear carried it off to. So while we were sleeping, something rather large and big and furry and brown came in, grabbed this bear carcass, ripped the bush out of the ground, drug it off somewhere to who knows where. Couldn't find a drag mark or anything. I think just picked it up and carried it away and never saw it again. So the moral of that story is don't tie a bear carcass to the bush in front of your tent. Fortunately, he's decided that was tasty enough. He left the meat and everything behind us alone, or he would have walked right through our tent, probably right over top of us. He'd probably eaten me, and I wouldn't even have woken up. But the crazy thing is Nick actually entertained the thought of maybe tying a string to his toe into the bush just in case, he slept through it. He wanted the bear to wake him up. So. Somebody mentioned telling stories, and my daughter said, tell one of the good ones, Dad, one of the funny ones. And I thought, usually let me translate that for you. That usually means I either get hurt or almost die in the story. So we'll just, that one's probably one of the safer ones. We'll leave it at that. How many of you, we talked about who hunts and who fishes and stuff. Let me ask you a question, why? Why do you guys like to hunt and fish? What do you think? Give me some feedback here. Right here. Say that again?
Whenever I catch fish, I get to eat them, and I get to watch my dad fillet them.
Oh, when she catches fish, she gets to watch her dad flay them. Here's another one. Let Dad do all the work. Okay, sorry, Dad. But she gets to eat them, and I agree with her. I love that too. I like to eat. I love to hunt, and I love to fish because I like to eat fish, and I like to eat deer, and I love to do that. Hold on, I'll get you in just a second, but I saw a hand right back here. Like to eat fish. Another one for eating them. This guy, how many of you like to just go out and explore while you're out there and just see different stuff? Yeah, I love to spend time out there looking at stuff. What else? Anybody else? It's fun. Heck yeah, it's fun. Y'all like to do it? Yeah, I wouldn't do it if it wasn't fun. Anybody else? Right here, young man. You get the trophy and the meat. Yeah, it's fun. I love tangling with especially with an older deer or an older animal, something kind of cagey, or trying to outsmart a big bass or a big trout, or just to me it's all those things. It's the adventure of seeing different things. It's trying to match wits with something and see if I can outsmart it. I love to eat it, so it's enjoyable to do that. It's fun just to spend time outdoors. I love being out there in the woods, in the fields, on the waters sometimes, and just enjoy the beauty of nature. And I think I'm finding more and more. I mean, when I was young, it was about the count. How many squirrels were in the bag, how many fish were on the stringer. And then I got a little bit older, it was how big was that fish, or how big was that deer. And I could go all day long and not shoot anything if I was chasing a certain animal and looking for something bigger. But the longer I've hunted, and I've always enjoyed all of those aspects, but the more and more I do it, now I really enjoy spending time in the woods, just taking it all in. And what I've discovered is I do that, as I sit out there and have an opportunity to just spend time in nature, is just begin to marvel at the intricacy of nature. We in West Virginia, we have a lot of different hardwood trees. We have a lot of different trees, dozens and dozens and dozens of different types of trees, and different trees for different things. We have hardwoods, and we have the conifers and the deciduous trees. Different kinds of nuts, different kinds of fruit. Some of them are crucial to our turkey population, or our deer population, or our squirrel population. And you think about how even just the life cycles of nature work with the animals and the trees and the things that they eat. And even at camp, any of you go out and actually camp when you hunt, or camp when you fish, or just like to go out and camp, spend time outside? One person. Okay, good. I like it too. How many of you have ever been outside and it's been dark outside? All right, everybody. Yeah. All right. Alaska's a great place to do this, but I would imagine here, of course, in West Virginia, you can only see about this much of the sky because of the mountains all around you. So you're kind of limited. But I'd imagine here you guys get just an enormous view of the sky if you can get away from the city lights and the town lights and stuff. But to marvel at the enormity of creation, of the stars and the planets that are out there. I read somewhere from a very reliable source, I think you got it from NASA actually, that there are enough stars. There's roughly 7 billion people on Earth right now. There's enough stars out there that we know of, that we can see, that everybody on Earth could own. Now my memory will fail me. It was either 2 trillion or 7 trillion. And you pick whichever. Let's go with 2 trillion. That's still a lot of stars. Okay, if 7 billion of us and each one's going to own 2 trillion stars, that's a lot to think about. That's a lot of stars out there. Interesting thing is the Bible tells us that God knows each one of them by name and knows their place. And I don't know, but I'm glad, because if I've got 2 trillion stars and every one of you have 2 trillion stars out there, somebody's got to make sure these things aren't out there running into each other, right? So it's a good thing somebody's got this under control. But as I sit there and marvel, as I sit there and begin to ponder these things, it comes to my mind that nature is just too unique and too mysterious and too perfect for it to be by accident. There has to be a maker. There has to be a designer behind that. I can't get by that there couldn't be. And I think those of us that like to spend time outdoors, like to hunt, like to fish, like to camp, like to hike and enjoy nature and explore it, I think we have a unique ability, or a unique privilege, a unique perspective to be able to see that and to be able to appreciate that people that don't do that miss out on. Man, I feel sorry for people who live in big cities like New York and New Jersey. Anybody here from those? Nobody wants to raise their hand and admit it, do they? Okay. I love y'all, but I would hate to not have access. You guys have a lot of farmland, but man, it's just beautiful. Just the agriculture and the outdoor setting that you guys live in up here. I love it. But we have a perspective that a lot of people don't get, and I feel for those folks that don't have that perspective. When I was in Alaska, like I said, I went up because there was so much big game to hunt, and I love the caribou. What's the funny thing is the biggest caribou I shot was a 1-year-old caribou that I won't show you a picture of because it's the smallest caribou that anybody's ever taken. But I didn't get to do a lot of caribou hunting, but I really didn't want to hunt like the sheep and the horned animals. I really wanted to hunt the big racked animals, the moose and the caribou and stuff. But I got an opportunity to go sheep hunting and literally fell in love with sheep hunting, especially solo sheep hunting. And they tell you in Alaska, when you go out, don't go out by yourself because it's too dangerous. And it really, really is. But sheep hunting, you're above tree line. In Alaska, the trees go up to about 5,500 feet, 5,000 in there, depending on the latitude where you're at in the state. But they don't go much above 6,000 feet anywhere in the state. So up above that, you get up above tree line, and the highest thing out there is the blueberry bush is about this big, which is another great thing to love about sheep hunting. The blueberries are ripe during sheep season, so you can sit down anywhere on the mountain and eat wild blueberries the whole time you're sheep hunting. And I love blueberries. But I fell in love with it because you're above tree line. You can see for miles. If you can get up on the ridge lines, you can see just ridge after ridge after ridge, and you're looking out there and you're saying, there are mountains out here that probably no man has ever walked on. No one has ever been there. And I remember my very first sheep hunt, I found a beautiful little spot to bed down for the night, set up camp, and when I climbed into my tent, I could see 36 different rams from my location in the range out in front of me. And it's you can't always get to them, and they have to be a certain size up there, be a full curl to shoot them, so they're not always all legal. But just to be able to observe that many animals and have that much opportunity, and then just to take in all of the beauty of that, it's just a marvelous and wonderful experience. And I fell in love, I think, more with the hunting of sheep than I did of the shooting of sheep. But it can be very dangerous, and that kind of adds an element to it. I remember that night, the very first night at sheep hunt, I remember when I went to bed, there was a soft breeze blowing onto my tent. And about 11 o'clock at night, the tent flap, the tent door was kind of pushed in a little bit, kind of popped back the other way. I thought, that's interesting. The wind must have shifted. Little did I know that meant something at the time. I woke up about an hour later holding my tent up like this because it had collapsed on top of me because the wind was blowing so hard it had smashed my tent. And so in the middle of the dark, I pulled the poles out, grabbed everything, and went running over the side of the mountain to keep from getting blown off of the mountain, and found a little bush to crawl up underneath it and lay there and slept the rest of the night. That was my first good sheep hunt. I remember I actually did take a ram on that one the next day. There's some pictures back there about that, and the interesting thing is the early pictures I took of it looks like it's nighttime because it was so dark because of the clouds that were sucked in on us or on me. I thought I'd broken my watch. I thought it was 10, 11 o'clock at night as it was getting dark, and then all of a sudden the sun came out, and it was like 6 o'clock in the afternoon. But second sheep hunt, I went on up there. I shot a ram at a long distance, and I went over to get it, and it was in a little slide of just shale and rock and stuff. And good deal. I was up on the side of this big steep cliff, and now it's down here where I can get to it. It had fallen quite a distance, and I went down and picked it up and rolled it over just to take a look at it. And as soon as I did that, the sheep and me and all the rocks and everything just started sliding down the mountain. And as I'm sliding down trying to drag this sheep out of the rocks, I look and there's two big boulders, and it kind of came to a chute, and all these rocks were going over this chute. And I thought, I'm going where those rocks are going, and that doesn't look good. And I let go of the sheep, and it went down and probably dropped 35, 40 feet. I scrambled up and got out of it and watched my sheep disappear out of sight. I thought, that's probably not good. I don't know where that's going. And went down around it and stuff. But the point of that is it can be very dangerous. If the terrain doesn't get you, the weather might. And if the weather doesn't get you, there's bears and other animals out there that might. Sheep aren't that big, but have you ever watched them things butt heads? Man, I'd hate to be at the receiving end of a ram, button heads or run over me. But the moose up there, there are people out there that get run over by moose all the time in the city of Anchorage, 2,500 pound animals. But you just don't know what you're going to face when you go out there. And of course, that's why they tell you not to go alone. But what I discovered sheep hunting is that I never felt more alive than when I was out there by myself on the side of a mountain, the side of a cliff, knowing that, there's things out here that can end my life for me. There are things out here that are more powerful than I am. You begin to take in the enormity of that, and you begin to realize just how small and insignificant you are, and how big and phenomenal creation is. And it's in times like that that, as you sit out there and ponder that, I can remember nights sitting in camp and hearing things moving in the brush out around me, listening to the wolves howl and watching the northern lights, and just thinking, something could eat me tonight, or I could fall off one of these mountains here, and they may never find me. And there's people, and they still find people that have disappeared, decades ago up there on hunts. And you begin to think about that. You begin to think how insignificant you are and how vast it all is. And you begin to ponder some of the deeper questions of life. How did I get here? How did this get here? Why is it here? What's the point of all this? Who am I and where am I going? Has anybody ever thought about those kind of things? As you're out there and you're just kind of relaxing and taking in life, begin to think of the deeper questions? Yeah, I see some hands, I see some nods, yeah. I think it's good for us to do that. I think it's good for us to ask those questions, but if we're going to ask them, we need to have the answers, right? Because it doesn't do any good to ask these kind of questions if we don't have the answers for that. The good news is we have a source. We have a source that brings us those answers, that tells us those answers. And I'm going to tell you tonight, it's the Word of God. It's the Bible. I didn't always believe that. I didn't become a believer in Jesus Christ until I was almost 21 years old, shortly before my 21st birthday, through actually a really bad car accident that happened a year earlier that almost took my life. I was in a Jeep in the passenger seat, and as I was flipping over another car, I got trapped between the two, and it smashed my head between the roll bar of the Jeep and the car. They tell me, I don't remember anything about the accident other than about 2 seconds of seeing the car in front of us, and I don't remember anything for 5 or 6 days after that. But I came out of that accident really surprised to be alive, and probably shouldn't have been alive, and I wasn't a believer at the time, and I believe God spared me for the very purpose of the fact that I did not know him. A year later, Scott, who happened to be the guy that was sitting in the back seat of the Jeep, he was the first person ejected in the crash, was killed in a head-on accident, hit by a drunk driver the night he was taking his fiancée home just after he had proposed to her. And a guy hit him head-on and killed him, and it shook my world up. Scott was my best friend, one of them. The other one was the driver of the Jeep, Billy. But I just remember thinking, Scott should still be alive. He wasn't doing anything wrong, and I was out living it up, doing all kinds of stuff wrong, partying, doing things I shouldn't have been doing, and probably should have been dead, and I'm still here. And I thought to myself, man, if I'd have died a year ago when I probably should have, I'd have split hell wide open. And that scared me. And God began to speak to my heart and began to show me how much he loved me and began to draw me to him. And so, a lot of people say, well, how are you dealing with being in a wheelchair? It's easy. I was on my way to an eternity without Christ, not knowing God, in a life that was miserable, not having the answers to those questions. Why am I here? Why does it matter? What's my purpose in life? I had no clue. And I was miserable, and I had no hope. And God, through a series of accidents that almost killed me, brought me to a saving knowledge of Jesus Christ. Showed me that his son, Jesus Christ, had died to redeem me, to restore me to a relationship with him. And that changed my life. That gave me hope. That showed me why I was here. That gave me all kinds of purpose and belonging and a secure eternity. And so, I look at that terrible accident in my life that almost killed me and look at what great things came out of that. And I look at this and I think, wow, what's God going to do now, man? This is going to be great. I can't wait to find out. And I get to hunt and fish more too at the same time. So, hey, it's all good, right? I want to share a couple things with you, though, out of the Word, because, how do we know this is something we can trust? And a lot of people say it's not, and yeah, you say the answers are here. You say that this has got the solution, but I've looked at it and I've read it. I've read it all my life and I've known it all my life. And I don't get it. I don't understand. As we take a look at His Word, as we even from the very beginning, who made all this wonderful creation that we enjoy. And in the very first verse, Genesis 1:1, God, in the beginning, God created the heavens and earth. He made it. And the great news is that He made it for us. Verse after verse, Psalm 89, just a couple verses from Psalm 89. The heavens are yours. The earth also is yours. The world and all that is in it. You founded them. The north and the south, you have created them. See, he made it, and not only did He make the earth, but He made us. He made all of us and everything that's here, and He made it. The Bible also tells us that He made it for His pleasure, but for our benefit, and He gave it to us to use. And so here we have this God who created it, who created us. And as we marvel at the creation, and we marvel at the depth of what He has made and how intricate it is, it should lead us to another question. And the natural conclusion is, okay, if God made it and He made us, well, what does that mean to us? What does that matter? How should we respond to that? The Bible's not silent on that either. Revelation 4:11 says, worthy are you, our Lord and God, to receive glory and power and honor. For you created all things. And for your pleasure, and by your will, they exist and were created. See, God created it, and He is worthy to be praised because all that He created, He spoke it into existence. And He is worthy of honor and power because of, if you don't take time to explore creation, if you don't take time to really dig deep into the uniqueness of it, you ever thought about even, you're part of the creation too, by the way. You ever think about your eyes? A lot of people say we evolved from a piece of slime on a rock billions and billions of years ago. You ever think about your eyes? Why do we develop eyes? How do we know there was anything to see? Why do we have a sense of smell? How do we know there was a smell to smell? Why would we even create olfactory glands to search out smell or touch? How do we know things had texture and touch? You think about how intricate the eye is and how that had to come into being and how it had to be put together to allow us to see. That stuff doesn't happen by accident. That stuff happens by a very, very, very powerful and skillful designer and maker. And I'm here to tell you tonight, submit to you tonight, that maker is God. And He is worthy to receive glory and honor and power. Here, the problem is us. We're not capable of giving God the glory and the honor and worship that He deserves. Because we have a problem. And it started all the way back in the beginning too. It started with Adam and Eve, and it's a problem with sin. It's a problem with coming up short. It's a problem with a heart that is dark, that doesn't naturally seek after God. Half my life I didn't, like I told you before. And we all share it. You might say, I'm a pretty good person. Yeah, you might be. I've met some of you. Some of y'all are pretty good people. I've met some of you, and maybe some of y'all aren't. But I wasn't, and you're probably all better than I am. And I'm glad and I'm happy, and that's what keeps the world civil. But the reality is it doesn't really help us in our relationship with God because He is holy. Because He's holy, we can only enter into His presence. We can only approach Him if we're holy. And we can't be that way. Romans chapter 3, a favorite book. Our church at home is going through this book very slowly, and man, what a powerful time this has been. But in the book of Romans, chapter 3, it tells us, verse 23, that we've all sinned. We all come up short. We all fall short of the glory of God. Just a few verses before that, listen to this. This is what Paul, the writer of a lot of the New Testament, A man also, if you don't know, who persecuted the church, who hated Christians, who thought he was doing God a favor by trying to wipe Christians off the face of the earth until he met the Christ, and then suddenly became the biggest spokesperson in that day for Christianity, telling people exactly the same thing I'm trying to share with you guys tonight. He said this, and he's quoting from the Old Testament in the book of Isaiah. He says, "None are righteous, no, not one. No one understands. No one seeks for God. All have turned aside. Together they have become worthless. No one does good, not even one. Their throat is an open grave. They use their tongues to deceive. The venom of asps is under their lips. Their mouth is full of curses and bitterness. Their feet are swift to shed blood. In their paths are ruin and misery, and the way of peace they have not known. There is no fear of God before their eyes." That describes everyone. No one is good, not one. And you might think, man, that's kind of unfair. Adam and Eve sinned, and sin entered into the world. Now I'm stuck because they messed up. You know what? I've thought that same thing. And it isn't fair. It's not my fault Adam and Eve sinned and brought sin into the world, and now I'm born in sin, and now I can't go to heaven, and I can't know God, and I can't find forgiveness. That's not fair. It's not fair, God. It's not. And you know what? It isn't. But it's God's plan. And here's the neat thing about God. You know, he's smarter than we are. You ever think about that? I'm not the smartest person in the world. And newsflash for you guys, none of you here are either. God is a whole lot smarter than we are. The Bible says his ways are much higher than our ways, beyond our comprehension, beyond our understanding. But you know what else is not fair? What else is not fair is that God came to earth in the form of Jesus Christ, God the Son, born of a virgin, never sinned, never did anything wrong, but out of love for each and every one of us sitting here tonight, out of love for you, Jesus Christ took our sin and bore it. He paid the penalty. See, there's a penalty for sin, the wages, the penalty, the price to earn for sin is death. In the Old Testament, it was a sacrifice. It never really took the sin away, but it covered it. It requires death. And if you die that death, then you're dead, and that's not a good way to go either. It doesn't work out too well for us if that's how we pay for our sin. For those that don't trust what Christ did, that's how they atone for their sin. But Christ did that for each of us. He who never sinned took your sin, took my sin, and went to the cross and paid that penalty for us so that our sin penalty could be erased. He did it in your place. Not only did he take your sin away, but that he put his righteousness on you so that you could enter into the presence of a holy and righteous God. Hey folks, that's not fair either. He didn't do anything wrong. He was God. He left heaven and came to earth and took your sin and paid for it so you wouldn't have to. Maybe it's not fair that we get to come into this world with sin, but God, in his love for you, made it possible to where all you have to do is put your faith in what his son did. You can't earn it, you can't work for it, you can't do anything good enough because your sin can't be repaid with anything but death. And because he loves you and doesn't want you to die and does want to have a relationship with you, he did it for you. That ain't fair, but hey, that's good news. All right? Jesus Christ did it for us. And I don't know where you sit tonight as you sit around here. I don't know if this is new information to you guys. I don't know if maybe you've known this for a long time. I knew about it as a young kid. I grew up in the Bible Belt. I heard this stuff from when I was just old enough to understand. Hey, Jesus Christ died on the cross. Yes, I believe that. God is God. I believe that. He was born of a virgin. I believe that. I believed that stuff all my life. I thought it to be true. I knew it to be true. Or I assumed it to be true anyway. But it wasn't until a night in Panama that I sat down beside my bed and realized that knowing it's true is a whole lot different than trusting that for my salvation, for my reestablished relationship with God. Now I'm trusting in what he's done to pay for my penalty so that I can have a relationship with God, so that I can stand before a holy and righteous God when he says, why should I let you in heaven? My answer, you shouldn't, because I was born in sin, conceived in sin, as the Bible says, and I backed that up by sinning from a very early age. From the moment my mom told me not to do something, and I said, I'm going to do it anyway, and I kept right on doing it. And I still make mistakes. I still don't live perfectly. I still commit sins. But that's how good I can be is not what I'm going to answer to God. But what my answer is God, I don't deserve to be in your heaven. But your son, Jesus Christ, paid my penalty so that I could come in. That's kind of like somebody tonight giving you free food. You didn't pay for the food tonight, but you got to eat. It was good, wasn't it? We get to enjoy the benefits of it, not because of what we've done, but because somebody else did it for us. And I don't know where you are tonight. I think we're blessed and privileged because I think, as we look at, there's a verse in Romans, the very first chapter. I love this passage. One of my favorite passages in Romans. It says this. It says, the invisible attributes, namely talking about God, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world. What's Paul saying? Paul's saying, hey, if you look out at the world, it's pretty obvious that God made it. Somebody made it. And if you look at how unique it is, you can see God's divine nature and his eternal power through what he's made. It's kind of like a painting. If you look at a picture of Picasso, I don't know much about painting, but what I understand is you look at a painting that Picasso painted and you understand painting, you can look at that picture and say, that's a Picasso. I can tell by how it's painted and what it looks like. I can tell that's a Rembrandt because of how it's painted and what it looks like. I can tell there is a God by looking at the creation that he made. His signature's all over it, his divine nature. You pour yourself into a product that you make, and it's pretty odd. We were looking at tables. This is going to be a very expensive trip for me. My wife picked out a table today, and I don't even want to tell you how much it was, but I judge everything by how many guns I could buy with the money I'd spend for something else. It's just kind of how I do things, or how many hunts I could go on. And this is like a 20-gun table here, all right? This is a nice table. It's an Amish-made table. And you can look at that table and you know that's an Amish-made table because there's a quality to that table that you can't find anywhere else. The author leaves his print all over that he creates. And God did that as well in the earth. But he doesn't stop at that. Listen to the next verse, or the rest of that verse, the next verse. His eternal power and divine nature have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world and the things that have been made. Now listen to this. So they are without excuse. For although they knew God, they looked and they could see that, hey, there had to be a God that made this. Although they knew God, they did not honor him as God or give thanks to him. But they became futile in their thinking, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Claiming to be wise, they became fools and exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images resembling mortal man and birds and animals and reptiles. They had all the evidence before them that, hey, there had to be a God. And we have that too. The good news is so much more than what they had when this was written is we have this too to tell us about him. Folks, we don't have any excuse for not knowing God. There's a church on every corner in the state of West Virginia. And just driving through your town here, there's church after church after church. There are folks around here. We don't have an excuse. We have his word telling us who he is. The sad thing is many of us still will exchange the truth for foolish things and chase after other things and not take time to know the God who is. Again, I don't know where you're at tonight. I'm going to be around here. I would love to tell you about this Jesus. I love to hunt and fish. As he said, I've been doing this all my life. I don't remember a time when I haven't. My life, I mark the passing of years by hunting seasons and fishing seasons, trout seasons in West Virginia right now. I can't wait to get back. They're stocking the rivers. The weather's getting nice, so I can get out there without freezing to death. I can't tell when I get cold, so I got to be careful. I can't go it's too cold because my legs freeze and I don't know it, and then bad things happen. I can't wait to get home and do that. And that's how that's been my passion since forever that I can remember. But as much as I love that, the only thing I love more than hunting and fishing and spending time outdoors is telling people about Jesus Christ. I love to tell you a good place to fish. If you want to come to West Virginia and catch trout all day long, I'll hook you up. You want to come down, you guys have bigger whitetail than we have, up here, so I don't know why you'd want to come out to hunt, but we have a few bears and we have turkeys, and I would love to take you out and I love putting people on good fishing and hunting spots. But all that stuff fades away. All the trophies hanging on the wall, they fade away. Those guns that we covet, they rust. Fishing poles break and stuff. But folks, a relationship with God is eternal. And I'm learning that this life is really short and eternity is really long. And as much as I'd love to sit here and talk all night about hunting and fishing, man, I'd do you a disservice if I didn't tell you about Jesus Christ and about his love for you, loved enough to die for you in your place to pay your penalty for sin so you could know him. I pray and I hope tonight that you know him, and if you don't, you'll do something about it. Come talk to me. Come talk to Pastor Ben over here. I know these folks would love to tell you all about it. You know, if you don't have a church to go to and a church family, you don't get saved by going to church, but I'll tell you what, the folks in the church can tell you how to know Jesus. And I found a church in Panama and a pastor who just took the Bible and said, here, read it, and let's talk about it. And I did. And he showed me what it meant to know Jesus Christ and to put my faith in him, to trust him in what he's done for me. Folks, don't wait. Don't wait. Take advantage of the opportunity to know him tonight or tomorrow. Make it happen. Can I pray for y'all? And then I'll turn it back over to you. Pastor, you can go on to the next thing. Thank you guys for coming tonight. Thank you for your attention and your participation. Thank you for laughing at my jokes. I really appreciate that. That does make me feel better. I can go back and tell my kids, see, they think I'm funny. My kids don't laugh at my jokes anymore. They just laugh when I hurt myself. But let's pray together. Let me pray for you. Father, what a privilege tonight to gather with these fine folks. And I met some of them tonight and just had a good time, and to spend a night together, eating together and fellowshipping together and talking about you. You've given us so much. Blessed us with so many things, and just the joy of your creation that we as people here tonight share. Man, we love it. Help us to love the one who made it, to see you in it, and to know you through your word. Father, I pray for these folks that are here tonight. Pray for those that are believers, that they would shine as lights for you in this community. And Father, I pray for those that are here tonight that don't know you. I pray that that they would seek you as you seek them, Father. You come looking for us. You hunt us down with more tenacity than anything we ever chase, Father, because you love us. And I pray their hearts would be open to you and your message for them. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
All right, thank you, Steve. The message he gave you is very important. I want us to take just another minute and consider this and think about this. And maybe you came in here tonight and, like you said, this might be new to you. It might be something you've never heard of before. You know, what is all this about Jesus? I thought I got heaven by going to church, and these kind of ideas go around. How do you get to heaven? How do you know God? How do you stay away from hell? People use that as a cuss word, but it's a real place. You don't get it by going to church. You don't get it by being good. You don't get it by any of those things. There's one thing that's required for someone to have a relationship with God, and that is put faith in what Jesus Christ did on the cross. He died for us like we all were supposed to die for our sins. And we've all come short of God's glory. We deserve death. But he made that payment for us, and we trust in that. And as you trust in that, you realize, hey, I'm a sinner. I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand, but if I did, how many of us would say, yeah, I've sinned? I've done something. My 5-year-old tells me that. He's understanding. I've sinned. We all do things wrong. So I don't know if there's much of a question, but we understand, yeah, we're sinners. But Jesus Christ came to make that payment for us because we've been separated from God, and he can bring us back together because of the death of Jesus. We have to trust in him. We have to admit to him, I'm a sinner, I know it, I'm trusting in Jesus Christ alone for forgiveness of my sins. If you've never done that tonight, I'm going to ask you one more time, if you just bow your heads and close your eyes, it's just you and me and God here just for a minute, okay? Just you and me and God. We'll get into all the rest of this here in a minute. In your heart, you say, I'm not right with God. I've got a problem here. I know that I've sinned. I've never come to God and asked for forgiveness, and this is a new thing for me tonight. In your heart, just talk to God. There's no magic words, really no words that are necessary, but just in your heart, tell God something like, I know I'm a sinner. God, I understand it, and I'm trusting in Jesus Christ. Whatever your words are tonight, it's just you and God. You're talking to him like he was sitting here, because he is. In your own heart, God, forgive my sins. I understand it. I'm trusting in Jesus Christ alone. I don't know about all this. I don't know if I can live like a good Christian or whatever. I got news for you. None of us can. And that's not what makes us a believer. That's not what makes us a Christian. It's faith in Jesus Christ. So just you and God here tonight. God, I'm not going to ask you to come down the front. I'm not going to ask you, if you say a prayer, to go to a back room and miss out prizes. You and God, you just talk to him. Forgive my sins. I'm putting my trust in Jesus Christ tonight. Maybe you've been a Christian for a long time and you believe in Jesus and you got this all taken care of, it's a wonderful thing. But are you living for him? You serving him like you should? Let's consider that just for a moment. Father, I ask tonight that you will speak to hearts of people that are here. I thank you for the ones who came. Some I know out here are believers. Some might be totally new to this. Some might absolutely not believe in what we have to tell them tonight. But we know that you are the creator. We know that you are the one who gave us life. And I ask that you would just show anyone here tonight who's maybe a skeptic, just give them answers to their questions and give them an understanding of who the creator is and how Jesus Christ came to die for us. May someone put their faith in you tonight in Jesus' name. Amen. I'm going to ask you to do something for me, if you will. In the inside of your pews, there should be a stack of cards. We call them comment cards. And I'd like for each of you to fill these out, and I'll tell you why. First of all, there's several reasons. One reason, we want to know who's here. If we have your address, we'll send you a card next year to tell you the date and everything. So we need your address. This is the way we take our registration tonight. And also, there's a comment part. That's where you comment, and you tell us all the good things you liked and the bad things. You say, hey, I would like this or like that, something you could do better. We want to hear from you. It doesn't mean we can always implement everything, but sometimes we can. And so write those down. And at the bottom of the card, this is very important. At the bottom of the card, and there's some pencils. They should be there, maybe in the pew in front of you. We put a few there. So just share if you can. Prick a finger, use blood, whatever it takes. At the bottom of that card, you will see it says something like, tonight I decided to put my faith in Jesus Christ. If tonight, for the first time in your life, you've decided, I want to believe in Jesus Christ, I want you just to check that. And someone from our church, either me or someone else, will come out and visit you and say, hey, can you have any more questions? Tonight, everyone's around here and it's hard to sit down with somebody. Or if you just want to talk with someone, write down there, can someone come and see me? If you have any questions about this or whatever, we'll come out and visit you. So write that on the card there. We want to be available to you, especially in this matter of your eternal life. Very important. So if you will, share pens around and fill that out. If you have any comments, it's great. And what we're going to do, from these cards, we have one special gun tonight that is not with one of these buckets. We'll choose from those cards for that gun. Is it a Golden Boy? Is that what it is? No, I don't know what it is. It's that. It's a nice one. Whatever it is, that one right there. So you want to fill out your comment card, okay? Fill it out, share a pen. Does anyone not have a card? Do we have enough? Okay, there's a couple in the back. Does anybody have an extra one in the pews there? In the lobby? Who's in the lobby from the church? You got some up here? Okay. Hey, June, if we need more, there's some in Lori's office on the shelf. I put a stack there. Okay. I'll make sure. And when you get that done, just pass it to the middle, if you will. We'll take them all up in a bucket. We'll go through them and see what kind of questions you have. Anybody else need a card? Just one, please. Don't fill out 4 or 5. It's not fair,